Good evening, fantasy football fans, and welcome once again to Getting Defensive. Unfortunately, I'm your host tonight. I'm sorry, JJ Wenner's not here. Gary Van Dyke, the tipster, not here tonight. Jeff DiMatteo, founder of Gridiron Ratings, I'll be your host this evening. I apologize in advance for that. Gary couldn't make it. It sounds like he had some kind of issue at home. We think his wife might have punched him in the mouth, left him feeling a little sore. He couldn't talk tonight. So for those of you that know Gary's wife, the lovely and talented Michelle, she is like Wu-Tang Clan. She's nothing to F with. So with me tonight is one of the newest members of the IDP team here at Gridiron Ratings. We've got Brandon Jackson. You can follow him at BJack83. Brandon, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me onto the show tonight.
Hey, man, I'm happy to have you. It's good for us to kind of spend some time together. I feel like, we've seen a little bit of content coming out. We've seen some stuff on social, but we haven't had a chance to really get together and talk football. I mean, it's that time of the year. My juices are flowing. I'm fired up, and I hope you are too.
Oh, yeah, very excited, man. Been researching these second-year players under my Kayon Thidedeax articles. I've gotten about 6 or 7 of them out. So people can get, an overview of what happened to these players. Some of them, a lot of them didn't produce. I think Gary notated only like 2 of them that finished in the top 60 in fantasy. I know Michael Parsons, the most notable one.
Sure.
But this goes to show that, it's a learning experience, it's a transition for these rookies. A lot of them not just going to come in and start right away and be productive. They have to, learn the game, and they have to earn the playing time from these coaches. So my articles, pretty much detail, what happened, what the situation was. Some of them struggled with learning the defense and things, so they couldn't get on the field right away. But going into the second year, they should be more prepared for a more prominent role. So that's pretty much what I've been going through. I've written articles on Arizona second-year linebacker.
Zaven Collins.
Zaven Collins. I've written up JOK. I've written up.
I'm a Notre Dame guy. I like JOK. I was hoping he would go anywhere but Cleveland, but here we are.
Right. You seem like he's in a pretty good system. So I'm excited to see what he does in his second year. The Tampa Bay system, they run aggressive defense with Todd Bowles. They had the most amount of blitzes. I think for the past two years, they were well ahead, number one in blitzes. So I'm interested to see what Tryon Shienka can do in his second year.
Yeah. Well, and that piece you just put out, a week or 2 ago?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if you guys haven't been checking out, Brandon's articles, Kayon Thidedeax, you can find those at gridironratings.com. Click the IDP link, on the menu there. Go right to the IDP page. You'll see them all embedded there. Obviously all our stuff's there in chronological order. But, Brandon, we got big doings tonight, man. The combine starts today. And I know you're a big redraft guy. You like a little bit of dynasty. Right. But, rookie fever has set in a very serious way here. And I'm already seeing some blazing fast times in the 40 for some of these offensive guys. And we won't talk too much about that because Gary gets really upset when we talk about the dirty O. That's for you, Gary. I know you're watching. He was laughing at us here. Gary did, in fact, leave a comment. I guess he enjoyed our jokes about him. Sorry, Gary. We love you. So we'll stay away from the dirty O. But, we're going to have a handful of players here and a handful of situations that we probably want to dig into a little bit because the combine always has an influence, right? It shouldn't be the end-all, be-all decision maker for your fantasy rosters or NFL rosters. We really want the film and the workout metrics to kind of work together and become one and allow that to help, have one confirm the other, right? Guy comes out, runs, 4.3, but you don't see that on film. He's probably not really running 4.3 on Sundays. That can be a problem. So that's where, when you see some of these guys, hey, guy puts up 49 bench reps. Well, if he's not throwing offensive linemen around, he might not be showing that as football strength. That might just be bench press strength. It may not be the same thing. So just remember, anytime you see giant numbers, anything becomes eye-popping, take it with a grain of salt, pump the brakes, take note of the player, go back, watch the games, pull them up on YouTube or your favorite location, wherever you go for your game clips and highlights. The combine's useful. Don't make it gospel. So with that, we're going to let's dive into a few situations with different teams, different position groups. What's a team and a position group that you would like to see maybe get filled by a particular player? Like, I don't know, do you have like, the Bears and, interior defensive lineman, like any team, any position group, what do you want to see get filled during draft season here?
Right. Me and Gary, we did a dime drop and we discussed the Chicago Bears. And one of their weaknesses is the interior defensive line. They have Akeem Hicks here. Akeem Hicks there. He's he's a free agent this offseason. He's 32 years old. He struggled with a calf injury that kind of derailed his season a little bit. And they got a new regime coming in. New head coach, new GM. They're going to be running a 4-3 defense. So they're going to depend on those two defensive tackles. And they talked about it in their offseason press conference, how important that position is, the middle of their defense, to stabilize it. So they're going to be in the market for a defensive tackle. So, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get the number one guy, Devontae Wyatt. He looks pretty good. I heard you discussing him on one of the shows, I think last week.
I love him. Consensus-wise, he's probably not the number one, right? There's a lot of folks that like Jordan Davis and some of these other guys. But if you're looking for a 3 technique like the Bears are, that defensive tackle guy, Wyatt can come in and be a difference maker and a disruptor. Really, really love what he brings to the table. He's got great first step quickness. I love how well he manages his hands and his feet together to shed blocks. And he might not pile up sacks at the NFL level. We hope he does. But I'm expecting tackles for loss, forced fumbles. I'm looking for a guy who can get down the line of scrimmage and just make life a living hell for offensive coordinators. He's not going to come out here and be Warren Sapp, right? Like, we're not saying that. But this guy can be had, in the late first, early second, probably in that range, depending on how he works out. He could move up a few picks here or there. He's going to be a great fit there. I think the real question when I think about the Bears and their defensive line, let's just say they draft Wyatt. They go out, they grab him. Who's going to be the other guy playing next to him? You're going to have to complement this rookie with another veteran. You got to get another 3 tech who can come in and play next to him and really help show him the ropes, learn how to be a pro. And then is Khalil Mack coming down to end? Like, I haven't read enough about it. So, your edge rushers were Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack. Are they putting their hands in the dirt? Are they going to be DNs? Are you going to move one of them back to backer? That's going to be interesting because Roquan's the man. You got to have him at the weak side spot and let him just patrol.
Right.
What do you do about the rest of it? It's going to be that's an interesting situation. I love Devontae Wyatt. I think he would be a phenomenal fit in that 3 tech for, a 4-3 team. I'm not saying the 3-4 team couldn't use him. I think if he was running, a 5 technique, you might be getting a little wide for him. I don't know if he's got the long speed to really set that edge, but he can go to a 4-eye where he kind of shades inside a bit and can take on a tackle. That's something where, again, these guys can, he's super versatile and he can do it all. Big dude, not going to wow you on the bench press, but he's got functional strength. He's a little stout, a little shorter, and so he uses great leverage. Love him a lot.
All right.
Sorry, that was a lot. Long-winded answer to say yes, Devontae Wyatt to the Bears. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, I know the Chargers, they might they need a run stopper too. They're like one of the worst, if not the worst, run defense in the league.
Run stopper and another edge rusher. I mean, Uchenna Nwasu? He's the edge rusher opposite of Bosa. I mean, he's a free agent now, and they've got to make some moves. I mean, Brandon Staley's a defensive coach. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I've seen linebackers mock to them. I've seen corners mock to them, edge rushers mock to them. It seems like no one's got a real firm beat on what they're going to do. Free agency is going to tell the story. And so when we get through this, second, week of March here, the Chargers have got to go out and go get a guy in that front 7, whether it's a backer, an edge, a tackle, whatever that looks like. They need one of them because they're not going to fill all of those needs in the draft. But I'll tell you, I would really love it if they could figure out, maybe go get the veteran, maybe the guy the Bears let go. help me, the defensive tackle that they just
Akeem Hicks.
Akeem Hicks, yeah. Put Akeem Hicks in the middle of that defense and go draft Nakobe Dean. Put Nakobe Dean next to Murray and Tranquil and those boys, and just let them patrol the field and blow things up. But it'll be
interesting. It's interesting that you brought up Murray. Because Gary's not too high on him. He struggled his first 2 years. They straight up benched him last year for Tranquil and Kaiser White. They took most of the reps at linebacker. This guy's a first-round pick, but with this new head coaching staff, they really have no ties to him. So it should be interesting what they do with him, in his third year.
Well, don't forget, the GM still does have a tie to him. Tom Telesco drafted him. So Telesco's been there for a decade. And so he still has ties to all these guys, whether it's Tranquil, Murray, et cetera, and so on. You invest a first-round pick in a guy, you got to exhaust every option to make sure he's successful. And, you get a scheme change when you come in. And, the adjustment to the NFL is not easy, especially when you're asked to handle coverage at the NFL level, manage the run game at the NFL level. It's not the same thing. Not very many guys show up and dominate day one like a Devin White or a Roquan Smith. Right. But, Murray's got the tools. I think he can play. It's going to be really interesting to see how they handle Kaiser White, because I believe he's a free agent too, right?
Yes.
And so, right. So you get White's a free agent. The expectation is that with where they are salary cap-wise, they have some money, but they got to figure out some guys on offense. I'd expect Tranquil to be there. They're not going to do anything with Murray. They're going to keep him because he's under contract for at least another year. And then barring a fifth-year option, you're probably looking at 2 more years of Murray, which is going to leave a lot of muddiness in that linebacking group. But if there's any questions about Murray, they can take Nakobe Dean right now. He's a little undersized, but he's a playmaker. And you can just say, hey, Murray, we want you to focus on the run game. You're read and react. We want you patrolling the middle, filling gaps. Nakobe Dean, hey, man, we want you playing the Kaiser White role. We want you kind of just all over the field. You're going to cover people. You're going to play the run. You're going to be that guy that we just turn loose and let you be the playmaker in our defense. Because Kenneth Murray, he profiled like a faster Brandon Spikes, and kind of a run thumper. He can do a little bit in the passing game, at least at the collegiate level he could, but he's not. That wasn't his MO. He's not like Dean, where he can step back and cover, and he's athletic enough to do that. Dean does a much better job than, say, Kenneth Murray.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about that guy. I thought Kenneth Murray performed well in the combine. I know he ran a decent 40, and the scouts were talking him up.
Straight line is great, but it doesn't help you get your hips around and cover a guy out in space. That's for damn sure.
That goes into your point about not going too crazy about the combine. Looking at tape.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and something that we put in our draft guide last year, and we'll do it again this year when we start talking about athleticism scores and things like that. I like to figure out agility scores. I want to know how their 3-cone and their short shuttle look, and how that measures against their height and weight. I want to kind of have a sense of how athletic is this player compared to his peers. And and Murray isn't an unathletic guy, but I don't think he's so twitched up to the point that he can make up for the fact that he doesn't process as quickly as some other players. Right. And so he's not like Darius Leonard, I feel like, can pick apart your game plan before the ball's snapped. And, Roquan Smith, same thing. Devin White, same thing. Now, those guys are also great athletes. So when you have both, it's incredible, right? But Murray doesn't have both. And so he's a good athlete. He's an okay processor. He's not great in coverage. He's got a lot of things he has to work on, but they're still married to him for at least another year. So that Chargers linebacking group, sorry, Gary, I know you love Tranquil. We might be a year away. He's like, shut up, Jeff. He'll probably be right, though. Watch Tranquil get 130 tackles and 5 interceptions. Right. What's another one? Hit me with a third one. What's another team that you guys think you need another team, maybe position group, where we think something's got to get done?
I was looking at the Falcons. When I was looking into the Michael Walker situation, they have I was looking at the offseason press conference from Terry Fontenot and the head coach, and they were pretty clear that they need pass rushing help. They couldn't get off the field on third downs. They played an enormous amount of snaps. That's one of the reasons why Foye Lucan just racked up so many tackles. The defense really struggled. They couldn't rush the pass. They had the least amount of sacks in the league by a considerable margin. I think it was only 18. Their leading cycle had like 5 sacks. Forgot the name of the guy. But he's not.
I don't know who had it, but so you had Grady Jarrett was in the middle of that defense. You got him eating up 3 blockers. The fact that nobody can get home is pretty embarrassing. I look at the Atlanta Falcons and I see a team with a lot of holes, right? And that's on both sides of the ball. You don't know what's going on with Matt Ryan. So are they going to go quarterback early? If not, do they just go BPA, best player available? And, if they do, it might not be exciting for IDP because they could very easily end up with a player like Derek Stingley. And, really corners and IDP, it's not getting anybody excited unless you're in a league that requires a cornerback, right? And if you require a cornerback, cool. Those rookies and those guys, they get targeted early, rookie year. Quarterbacks are going to test them, right? So they put up some numbers rookie year, but they're not really worth anything after that. Because once they've established that, hey, I shouldn't be trifled with, people stop throwing at them. And then if they are getting thrown on and getting beat all the time, then the coach pulls them. So they're still not worth anything. So really you have the rookie year on a corner and that's about it, right? So for me, I look at this and I'm thinking to myself, what's Atlanta going to do? They're in kind of like a no zone, right? They're a little too early to get any of the elite guys. They're not getting Hamilton. They're not getting Hutchinson. They're probably not getting Thibodeau. All those guys are spoken for, gone. Now
I want to talk to you about what about Jermaine Johnson from FSU? He kind of intrigued me.
All right.
If they can't get Hutchinson or Thibodeau, is 8 too early for Jermaine Johnson?
If he's your guy, it's never too early. So we always talk about, guys will reach or this or that. Well, look, man, if you couldn't trade down, then you got to take your guy where you can take him. And so is it too early? I think he's more of a mid-late first rounder. He's got really good bend. I can't wait to see how he runs, but he seems like he's fast enough, right? He's got good hands. I really love his motor. He did some really good things at Florida State. Looked great through the whole offseason process so far. I mean, I think he was actually a guy that we had looked at quite a bit when it came to the Senior Bowl process, because as we pulled him up, he was a number 1 JUCO player. Let's see, what did I have noted up here? Yeah. So not overly twitched up. He's going to have to measure well at the combine. This is a guy that's going to have to run really well. He's going to have to jump really well. But, you're talking about a guy who's a fringy first-round IDP pick if you pick only IDP. So, I don't know if I love him to be the alpha, pass rusher. Devastating spin move, scheme agnostic. He can be hand in the dirt. He can be standing up. But I'm not trying to – if I'm the Falcons brass right now and I'm in my second draft, I need to get the best player I can possibly get. And I think I'm more likely to take a flyer on, and I'll throw Nakobe Dean back out there because he'll still be on the board at 8. I would rather have a locked-in playmaker. If I'm going defense, give me Dean. If I'm going offense, they need another wide receiver. You don't know what's going on with Ridley. Julio's gone. You got Pitts, but they don't have a running back. Matt Ryan's, 40 years old or near it. Right. And, that they just need to take the best football player regardless of position. So I don't even know if they're a lock to take a defensive player. They allegedly want to free up some money to go after some free agents, which I thought was a really interesting thing to come out and say. So I expect them to throw around a lot of guaranteed money, big signing bonuses, because nobody's really rushing to go play in Atlanta right now.
Okay. Yeah. It should be interesting how they, attack free agency in the draft, considering they do have a big hole at pass rusher. So I was just interested to see how. I know the cap situation, they're over the cap, so I'm not sure who they're going to be able to get as an edge rusher, with limited cap space. So I thought maybe they probably attack it through the draft, but
they'll have to make a decision on Matt Ryan. That's going to be the big one because he's got something like a $45 million cap hit this year, some kind of ridiculous number. And, if they decide, hey, look, we can't make any room and we can't make this team any better, they might be forced to even extend him another year so they can restructure his deal, give him some, convert a lot of his salary to a signing bonus, add an extra year, throw a few more bucks at his way, and then it locks him in. It's the Drew Brees program. And if that becomes the case, they become married to him, it removes quarterback from their draft board effectively, unless you're going mid-late round. And at that point, you could probably go after some guys. But that whole team right now, from a defensive standpoint, they need players, but they also need them on offense. So I just don't know. I think when I think, if I look at a team and I say, are they locked in to take a defensive player? Probably not. I think the Giants are probably more likely to go like defense out of the chute in the draft with their 2 top 10 picks than Atlanta is to use their 1.
Right. They do have a lot of holes on offense. You need some wide receivers, and you notated the Calvin Ridley situation. They're saying during the offseason press conference, they were saying that there really was no communication there. They didn't know what to tell the media about Calvin Ridley. So it should be interesting, what happens with them.
Right. Well, and if Calvin Ridley, and we don't, again, want to get into the dirty O stuff, sorry, Gary. But apologizing all show long. But if he's really struggling with any kind of mental health issue, we hope that, he gets whatever he's working on kind of squared away and fixed up, because obviously, that's really important, right? We want to make sure he's right, because you certainly don't want him in the building if he's not right. And, even if Ridley's on the field, that team's still pretty putrid. If they, we talk about how bad Matt Ryan was last year, this team could have been a lot worse if they didn't have Matt Ryan. They could legitimately be picking in the top 3 if they didn't have him. So if they can figure out how to restructure him, extend him a year, whatever, build a bunch of weapons, get everyone together, build that roster up, then when he retires or walks away, then they can go get another quarterback, kind of the Seahawks method when they drafted Russ. They had that defense was built. They had a running back. They had a bunch of parts. Then they just got the quarterback, and suddenly they took off. That could be the Falcons' build process here. But, defensively, if they're going to do it, they need a couple of guys in free agency. They're going to need to take whoever the best player is. You can't reach here just because it'll be a short tenure for Arthur Smith and Terry. I don't know if it's Fontenot or Fontenot, but either way, Terry and Arthur will be gone, will be the situation if they can't get a couple starters out of this draft. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting situation, to say the least. A lot of question marks there. But why don't we hit a few players? So, during our last few shows, when we talked about the Senior Bowl and some things like that, I know you weren't here with us, but JJ and I had covered a handful of different players, and kind of what their trajectory was throughout the course of like Senior Bowl week and some of the offseason process. And we talked about some guys that we thought would have some value later in your IDP draft. And, we've got some guys, we'll call them the risers, right? So a few guys that if they work out really well, we could see them bounce into the second round of the NFL drafts. And that'll help them move up your IDP draft board also. And I know you had, admittedly said you're more of a redraft guy. So yeah, don't have a lot of time in on these guys. But I'd be interested to see if you know anything about any of these guys that I'll bring up. So Chad Muma out of Wyoming. This guy's 6'3", 242, monster. We talked about him during the Senior Bowl a little bit. Prototypical size, reliable tackler. He covers well enough, and it seems like when he's, tracking down the seam, he can get his hips around, he can play really well. If he runs really well at the combine this weekend, and linebackers, they work out, I believe, Saturday afternoon. He comes out, he runs well, puts up a good bench, puts up a good vert, just kind of does good at everything. He's a guy that I think could really find himself in the late second round. And it would be interesting to see a team like in Atlanta, put him next to Mykal Walker, because Walker's, converted safety. So he has a lot of the coverage capability. You can put Muma in there as that reliable tackler. And now you've got kind of the 2 specialists already on the field, and they'll complement each other really well. He can plug in just about anywhere. He can be a legit 3-down backer in a 4-3 or a 3-4. Have you run into Chad Muma at all?
I did look at some tape on him. He's from Wyoming, correct?
Yeah. So yep, big Wyoming backer. Basically ended up, he was like their only real defensive piece. Every time you watch them on defense, he's the only guy making plays.
Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good to me on tape. He looked pretty flat, fast, pretty fluid. Like you notated, he was good in coverage. I saw it on film. He was good rushing the passer. I showed him blocking some kicks on special teams. So yeah, I was very intrigued by watching his tape. So yeah, it's interesting that you said he's going to be around the second round pick. He looks like one of the best linebackers on the
Yeah,
chart.
I love his arrow is pointed almost straight up. I mean, he put up 9 tackles in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. I mean, anytime you go into an All-Star game and you're one of the All-Stars of the All-Star game, that's a great move, right? That looks really good for you. And he comes out, and if he measures really well at the combine, he comes out and he runs well and he jumps well and he does all the wins a few medals at the Underwear Olympics. This is a guy we could be talking about as a legit IDP player, and he could be a real steal in your IDP drafts.
Wow.
Let's see, another guy that this guy might be more of a not so much a riser, but I think he has to perform well just to hold his position right now. And that's Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State. We talked a little bit about Brisker off the air before the show. Super rangy, really long player, great speed, right? He looks fast. He can jump. He basically just, he's that thin red line between a big play on the offense or a punt. And it seems like he's that guy that's always making a play for Penn State, getting them off the field. The expectation is that he's going to have a hell of a broad jump, big vert. He's going to run fast and do all these things. Now, if he comes out and he underwhelms, he could slip out of the first round. And we could see guys like Daxton Hill, Lewis Seen out of Georgia, and some of these other safeties start to kind of replace him in that second safety conversation. Because for anybody who's been watching, they know Kyle Hamilton. That's my guy. And I've waxed poetic about him for like 4 episodes of Getting Defensive already this offseason. So we won't talk about Hamilton today. But that's a guy where he's probably going to perform pretty well to keep his position. How do you feel about Brisker? Have you kept up with him at all?
Yeah, I was able to watch some tape on him. He looks like a really good safety prospect. The speed really pops off. I did see that vertical leap, one of those interceptions he had against Wisconsin. He really got up in the air. He looks really good attacking the line of scrimmage too. Really good closing speed. So I'm interested where he goes. I know that's another position that the Bears needed because their free safety. We mentioned him on the dime drop. Eddie Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
He struggled in coverage all last year, and I'm hearing reports that he wants to move the corner. So that's a potential need for the Bears to fill.
So you're a Bears fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I do like the Bears.
I was like, man, this guy's been really picking on the Bears this offseason. All right. Hey, nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Everyone's got their thing. I've actually got a signed Butkus jersey hanging up right over there on the wall. It's my room in here is kind of decked out like a cheaper version of the NFL Hall of Fame because I'm a degenerate.
Nice.
And so, but yeah, I think Brisker, if he's playing free safety somewhere, I actually kind of had him pegged in a place like Kansas City. No Tyrann Mathieu coming back. Sorensen's always terrible in coverage. You put a fast guy like that on the back half. L'Jarius Sneed's been a decent enough player. He's looked okay at times. And you put Brisker back there and let him just patrol center field, especially in a division where you're going to have to go up against, Herbert twice a year. You've got Derek Carr. People can say what they want about Derek Carr. He's been a more than competent quarterback at the NFL level. And then, whatever happens in Denver, who knows who's going to be playing quarterback in Denver, but they got a bunch of receivers. So Kansas City, if they want to hold that division, probably need some help in the secondary. I love Brisker going to the Chiefs. We'll see how it plays out, though. He still has to, measure to kind of hold serve and secure himself in that late first round category. Could slide to the early second, but man, Kansas City would be such an ideal spot. No offense to your Bears, but I'd really love to see him go to KC.
All right.
Let's hit a couple more here because we'll wrap this thing up a little early tonight.
Okay.
How about another linebacker? We love linebackers around here. Oklahoma linebacker Brian Osmoa, all-around skill set. This is a guy, he's a little undersized, right? Kind of like Nakobe Dean, 6'1", 228. He might struggle in the run game a little bit just due to a lack of general strength and girth. He's not going to man up on guards. But, this is a player that has a lot of speed and versatility and could very easily come in and, stretch plays to the edge and force teams to kind of have to navigate around him just because of his athleticism. You kind of have to run away from him a little bit to keep him from making plays. I'd love for him to bulk up a little bit. Can't wait to see how he actually measures in Indianapolis. I'd love to see him come in and be, 6'1", 235. Because if he suddenly is going at 235 instead of 228, 7 pounds doesn't sound like a lot. But 7 pounds of muscle makes a whole heck of a lot of difference when you're talking about trying to move grown men at the point of attack. So really interesting player there. He comes out, if he's a little bit bigger than advertised, if he runs kind of well, what I'd really want to see is a strong bench press out of him. Give me a strong bench press, good 3-cone, good short shuttle. And this is a player that could, find himself in the 3rd round very easily. If he doesn't work out well, I mean, we could see him really slide and become one of those late round guys that we're all kind of taking flyers on. But what are your thoughts on Brian Asamoah? Have you checked him out at all? Sorry, slurred.
I watched a little bit of tape of him. Seems like a pretty well-rounded linebacker, rushing the passer and things. I haven't looked too deeply into him. I'm trying to see some teams that can possibly use him at linebacker. I know there are some teams that struggled against the run that possibly use a linebacker. The Jets. Jaguars, Broncos, they need some linebacker depth. So they could possibly use a guy like him.
Absolutely. Or even a team that likes a faster linebacker. Get a team that just wants a guy that can, he might not go out and get you 100 tackles, but they want him around the football just to kind of, clog things up and make it difficult on the offense. A team like Seattle could really use him again, line him up next to Jordan Brooks, because Bobby Wagner won't be there forever. Wagner's going to go away. And if Asamoah could come in, sit behind a guy like Wagner, play next to Jordan Brooks, it could help him develop a little bit faster. I don't know that Seattle's really the spot for him. We'll see. Really want to see how he measures before I kind of make any, flag planting statements. But I like Asamoah. He plays well enough, passes a few check marks in the eye test, leaves you with a few question marks. I'm not taking him early, but interesting player all the same. Let's hit a couple more, and then we'll dart on out of here for the night. So a guy that nobody seems to be talking about, and I can't seem to find anybody bringing him up anywhere, is an edge rusher, linebacker, defensive lineman. His name's D'Angelo Malone. This guy's out of Western Kentucky, and truthfully, I don't expect a lot of people to know much about him. But guy had 6 tackles and a half a sack in Mobile during the Senior Bowl. This guy's got plus athleticism, super quick feet, really strong hands. Really can't wait to see him work out. I want to see him run. I want to see him do all the drills. This is a dude where if he comes out and he lights the combine on fire, he comes out and this athleticism, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to go run 4.4 at his size, 6'4", 240. But, if he goes up and he puts up a 4.55 or sub 4.6, this is a dude where, hey, if you can plug him in at D line and he puts up enough bench reps, he can very easily step in and be one of those guys where he may be a little bit of a project, but he can come out and in 2 or 3 years, you taxi squad him in IDP Dynasty. He's going to be a dude that will pay off, and he'll end up being a 6, 7, 8 sack a year guy. Maybe that's not sexy like an Aiden Hutchinson who, is like Nick Bosa, but he's a guy that's going to be productive at the NFL level, especially if he measures well. We're going to know more on Saturday. And I know next Thursday we'll do the Combine review show, so we'll kind of go back over some of this. But D'Angelo Malone, I think he is a budding star, and I can't wait to see how he works out.
Right. So he's more like a pass rushing linebacker, or
absolutely
3-4, because he looks kind of small to me. I saw some.
He definitely. I mean, 6'4", 240. He's slender looking. Like if you watch him on film, like he doesn't look stocky. 6'4", he looks like a thin 240. So right. I wouldn't be shocked if we find out he's like 231, 232. Something like that at the combine here. These heights and weights you get from colleges are always a little inflated. So we'll get his height weight updated once we have the official measurements. But imagine him in a 3-4. I'd love him in a place like Pittsburgh. Let him play behind Alex Highsmith for a year. He'll eventually beat Highsmith out for the job, and let him be the guy opposite of TJ Watt. And, Watt draws so much attention that if you can put an athletic specimen like Malone on the opposite side, that could be really dangerous. And it would be a low-cost option on a defense that desperately needs to add a few players without spending any money.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely ideal to play next to TJ Watt. Have him take away all the attention.
Absolutely.
Those edge rushers, and especially in big play IDP leagues, they're premium.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're playing in a league that rewards sacks, Malone's a guy that needs to absolutely be on your radar. You've got to have him queued up. we like him quite a bit here. I can't wait till, like I said, finish up some of my analysis on him. I want to get the combine grades in and rewatch a couple of his games. But from the Senior Bowl stuff and the couple games I've watched, I'm like, he looks pretty good. He's kind of one of those guys that could be sneaky where, maybe he's not wowing you and he's not an early pick necessarily, but he could sneak in. You could spend a last round rookie pick on him. And, in 2 years, you might have something special. And, I'm not saying you don't taxi squad the guy, right? In Dynasty, use your taxi squad spots. If you've got a guy that has tremendous upside, you have to leverage it. And sometimes that means being, able to use those taxi squad spots, find those guys that are maybe just a good coach away from going from a good player to an amazing player. And I think he might be in that category. So keep an eye on that guy, D'Angelo Malone. You can jot that one down, plant it in the memory bank.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I'll tell you what, before we get out of here tonight, because I know we're going to be pretty psyched about the combine all weekend, what else have we missed tonight? Are there situations, players, any articles that you got coming out that you want to talk about? What's new with Brandon? What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I was looking over some players I could potentially write about. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but yeah, I'll be writing. I'll be researching, doing some research, and writing about more second-year players that didn't break out as a rookie, and then we'll go over them. I don't have them in front of me, but I'll continue doing the key and diagnose articles for you guys.
Okay.
And just letting everybody know what the situation was with these guys. So guys players that you invested in Dynasty that didn't work out as rookies. So that, the public knows, hey, these guys have a real chance of breaking out. I didn't notate them.
No, it's okay.
Right
I kind
now,
of put you on the spot there. Right? That's my fault. I put you on the spot with that one. We didn't even talk about that pre-show. But cool. Well, Brandon, it has been fun tonight. I'm glad we had a chance to talk a little bit, cover some rookies, cover a few situations. For those of you that are just catching back up, Brandon writes the key and diagnose articles on gridironratings.com. Be sure to check him out there and on Twitter at bjack83. Brandon, what are we missing? Is there anything else that any other ways to reach out to you?
Mostly on Twitter.
Just Twitter. All right.
Yeah,
the DMs open? Like, can they slide in? Can people slide into those DMs? Are they open?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You heard it, folks. He's ready for you to slide into those DMs.
Yeah,
cool.
I'm excited to work with Gary and the Gridiron staff this year. I've been watching Gary for a long time. He's been very informative on the IDP side. I've been playing IDP since about 2011. I was broken into fantasy in IDP league, it was offense and IDP. And
trial by fire.
I'm kind of surprised that IDP is not more popular than what it is. It's kind of disappointing. So hopefully we can get more traction on IDP, get more viewers and more people join IDP leagues. Because you learn so much about the game playing IDP. It's fun. I don't know, why the perception of IDP is that it's not fun. They act like it's a standard league or something. I guess they're not playing in good leagues. I'm mostly playing the balance in big play leagues where you get your points from the big plays, sacks, and things like that. Maybe they need playing in more of those type of leagues. It's kind of perplexing. I was on Twitter last week, and some people don't even know that IDP exists. There's a guy that put out this post saying that who your breakout Cardinals, and he got a response. It was why do I keep forgetting this second-year linebacker for the Cardinals?
Zayvon Collins. Well, he didn't do anything last year. It was pretty forgettable last year.
So, guy put in Zayvon Collins. He says, "Oh yeah, good, but that's not for fantasy." I'm like, really? Now, IDP does exist. Yes, he very much is a prime breakout candidate. So
you can't account for everybody, and you can't account for taste, right? Well, everybody, just remember, if you're not playing IDP, you're only playing half of the game. For Brandon Jackson, I am your stand-in host. We'll get JJ and Gary and the crew back next week. And we'll endeavor to do better next time. I'm Jeff DiMatteo for Brandon Jackson. We hope that you guys have an absolutely amazing evening. Brandon, you gonna give him a wave? Give him,
all right, thanks, guys.
There it is. Put you on the spot all over.
Yeah, sorry about that.